Hey everybody, how's it going? I'm Paul, I'm with the Dicey Review, and today we're going to be playing a solo playthrough of Marvel United, which is a game that came out a few years ago, but I've been excited to play it a bit more recently because I have the new Spider-Geddon core box coming in, and I've recently been trying to paint some more of these figures. It's a really straightforward, kind of simple crisis management game, but it has a fun loop. There's a lot of fun decisions to be made, and the miniatures are a lot of fun. Thematically, it's a really cool game. So we're going to be doing a solo playthrough today. It's a pretty straightforward game. I'll talk a little bit about how to play as I play it. We are playing the Shield solo mode, which means that we're going to be controlling 3 characters. And other than that, the game is pretty similar. The only difference is we draw 5 cards and we mix all of our character decks up instead of playing each character individually like we normally would. But other than that, the game proceeds in a very similar way. What we are trying to do is stop Red Skull from completing his nefarious schemes and having all kinds of bad stuff happen to the heroes. And to do that, we have to complete at least 2 out of the 3 missions to be able to damage Red Skull. But if we complete 1 mission, we start to have more pressure on us and Red Skull activates more frequently. So there's kind of some timing where you have to think about when to complete missions to make sure that you're not getting hit more often for a very long time. And we also have to maintain and kind of manage some threats at each of these different locations around the board. There's 6 different locations, and there's all kinds of threats that are going on with Red Skull, either with things that are, schemes that Red Skull is trying to complete, or minions that are helping Red Skull, like Madam Hydra or Crossbones or things like that. So with that bit of intro done, we are ready to start playing. So we will begin here in a second, and we'll kind of give you a brief run through of how the game works as we play. All right, so in general, how this game is going to work is there's going to be a timeline, which is just a line of cards that line up, and we take actions based on the cards that we play. The heroes have symbols on their cards that allow them to do certain things, but the villains will have different symbols on their cards that tell players how the villain moves and what happens when the villain moves. So what will happen is at the start of every game, there will always be a villain card that gets turned over first. And a few different things will be on this villain card. First, there will be a number of movement. So this villain will move 2 spaces in a clockwise direction. Then the villain will potentially activate their BAM ability, which is bad for sure if the villain is at the same location as the heroes, but also this villain will activate everybody's BAM ability, not just the villain's BAM ability. So for instance, Madam Hydra has a BAM ability that will get activated, so does Crossbones. So we'll do that next. So Red Skull's BAM ability says deal 1 damage to each hero in Red Skull's location and increase the fear track by 2. So we're lucky in that no heroes are at his location, but we do advance the fear track by 2, and that's bad because at the end of if this fear track ever hits 20, we lose the game. So there's a bit of a timer on us. Then we'll have to activate all of the other BAM locations. So this one says BAM, deal 1 damage to each hero at this location. That's not applicable. Same thing here, except deal 2 damage. So nothing happens from the other BAM abilities, but Red Skull does also add thugs to 3 different locations. So Red Skull will first add 2 thugs to the location where Red Skull is at, and then we'll add 1 thug to each adjacent location. Now, These locations are now full, which is bad because if Red Skull ever tries to activate a location or add minions or thugs or civilians to a location and they can't, then an overflow ability will trigger, which will bump this threat track even more. So already from the start of the game, we have a bit of pressure on us. But now the good news is we get to activate 3 cards of our own before Red Skull activates again. So the way this game goes is we will add cards to the timeline to take actions. And every time we play 3 cards, Red Skull will play another card and then activate, and then we'll rinse and repeat. And what we're doing on our turn is we're playing 1 card from our hand to take actions, and then you will also get the benefit of the card that's played most recently in the timeline. So for instance, if Captain Marvel played this card and did 2 punches, then Black Widow, for instance, could come and play another card, and Black Widow would get a move, a heroic action, and 2 punches. And then if Iron Man were to come later and play this card right here, Iron Man would get a move, another move, and a heroic action, right? So you're always triggering with the card that was played last in the timeline if you're the heroes. And what the actions will do is pretty straightforward. They'll either remove thugs from locations, rescue civilians from locations, or fill in these different threats to complete those. Because what we're trying to do is fill in all of these cards either by rescuing civilians, defeating thugs, or clearing threats, which is completely removing these cards. And we'll talk about how to remove these cards here in a second, because we're probably going to do some movement / heroic action stuff. So what we'll do first is how you play in the solo mode is you play cards of one of the 3 characters that you control, and whatever card you play is the character that activates. So for instance, I think we're going to play this card first, which activates Black Widow. This will give Black Widow a movement and a heroic action, which means that Black Widow could either use her star action to rescue a civilian at her location, or fill in one of the stars from this threat at this location, and if it's filled in with all 3 stars, then it's cleared. And then she can move, and she can do those in any order, right? So she can move first and then use her heroic action, vice versa. And these threats at each location will kind of gum up the works for our players, because like for instance, this one says each thug in this location requires 2 damage to be defeated, 2 punches, whereas normally it's only 1 punch to defeat a villain. So getting rid of these threats is good, number 1, for filling up our threat mission, but also for making things easier for our heroes. So I think what we're going to do is first we're going to use our heroic action from Black Widow. Oh, and I forgot. Sorry. At the start of every hero turn, you draw a card. I should have done that. Ooh, and that's a pretty good card. We just drew Captain Marvel's card with 2 heroic actions. Anyway, sorry, I skipped that step, so now we're square. So we drew a card, and then we play a card. I think what we're going to do is we're going to use the heroic action at the start of our turn to go ahead and fill in one of the required spots on this mission. Then we are going to use Black Widow's movement to move right over here. I want to try and clear some of these. So the trouble is with Red Skull, sometimes he doesn't move. Sometimes his arrow is a 0 and he attacks. So I think maybe... But if I move over here, then Madam Hydra's BAM ability might affect Black Widow. I think I'll move here. This is risky and maybe a bad idea, but I would like to be able to clear off Agent of Hydra and... Oh, but he also has a thing that says if heroes start their turn in this location, take a crisis token. Good grief. Okay. You know what? I may just abandon the movement and try and clear things out at this location first. I'll do that. So that is our first turn. We did a heroic action and then we didn't use the movement. But it's okay, because I think with this Captain Marvel card that we drew, we're going to be able to clear off that threat. So it is now our turn again. We get to play 3 turns until the villain activates. So we draw a card. Oh, fantastic. Iron Man drew 2 punches. So what we'll do is we will then play Captain Marvel's card. So Captain Marvel's card gives us 2 heroic actions, and remember we get to trigger with the other heroic action, the other card behind us. So we now have 3 heroic actions and a movement. So what we're going to do is we're going to use 2 of those heroic actions to clear off this threat. So that is gone. And then we will also use our remaining heroic action to rescue a civilian at this location, which is great because that now means that we have put in 1 of the civilian needed to clear off a mission, and we've also cleared 1 threat. So if we clear 3 more threats, we are 1 step closer to being able to damage Red Skull, because the thing is, we have to clear off 2 of these missions before we can damage Red Skull, and our goal in this game is beating Red Skull. So we're working on 2 different ways to be able to damage Red Skull. So we've done our 3 heroic actions, and now we can move with Captain Marvel. And I think what we may want to do is, oh gosh, do we want to move over to where Red Skull is and start punching away at, oh, if we do that we would waste a heroic action. So maybe we go where Madam Hydra is. So we're going to use Captain Marvel's, so Captain Marvel is the active hero because we played the Captain Marvel card. But Captain Marvel still gets the movement from the previous card played. So I think we're going to move Captain Marvel over here to start maybe working on Madam Hydra and clearing off some of these, oh man, some of these threats because we have a double punch card with Captain Marvel. Okay, so that is our turn. We now have 1 more turn before Red Skull activates. So we get to take our final turn before Red Skull activates. We draw a Captain Marvel card, and we go ahead and play our 3rd Captain Marvel card, okay? So now we have 2 punches and 2 heroic actions. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start punching at Madam Hydra. So if you are at a location with a villain or one of these larger minions, you can punch, and instead of removing thugs, you can punch directly on the villain or minion's health. And when this minion is cleared of all health, there's 5 health for Madam Hydra, that threat is removed, just like filling up one of these cards with the 3 stars. So we've done our 2 damage to Madam Hydra, and now we have 2 heroic actions left. So I think what we want to do is clear off these 2 civilians with those heroic actions, which is going to get us closer to our goal and also clear up some space in Central Park to hopefully make it to where there's not an overflow that happens. But it's now Red Skull's turn, and I'm worried about what Red Skull is going to do. Okay, so I'm going to clear off this timeline. Normally you just play them in a big line, but since I'm limited on space here, I'm going to go ahead and clear this off. And now it's Red Skull's turn. So Red Skull will activate. Okay, so we are 1, 2, 3. We're actually somewhat lucky for a number of different reasons. Okay, because Red Skull moves 3 spaces. 1, 2, 3. We are lucky though because Red Skull's BAM ability was not activated, and we just cleared off some civilians over here to give us a bit more room, so I think we're okay on room as well. Red Skull is going to move 3 spaces. Now this little target symbol means that if Red Skull lands on a location that also has that target symbol, that ability activates. Now that says heroes in this and adjacent locations take 1 crisis token each. Crisis tokens are bad. They will make us, sorry, I'll have to grab some from over here. Crisis tokens are bad. They will make us have to take more fear and things like that. So we don't want crisis tokens, but it's not the end of the world, I don't think. So I'll keep my crisis token like right here, over here, just to keep that close by. And then Red Skull will add 2 civilians here. So there's lots of civilians that are in peril. And then 1 civilian at each adjacent location, and that is Red Skull's activation. So not too bad overall, I think. Now, what I want to do though, I definitely want to, I think, try and activate Captain Marvel again to see if we can clear off Madam Hydra before she BAMs again. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take my turn. I'll draw a card. I get a wild symbol with Black Widow. That symbol is for wild. And then I'm going to activate... So I think I'm going to activate Captain Marvel again. But let's see here. The issue is I could activate Iron Man to get like double punches, but he wouldn't be able to move over there to hit Madam Hydra. So I think I'm going to have to activate Captain Marvel again, which is a bit of a bummer because I don't necessarily want to move. But I need to activate Captain Marvel, and that's the only Captain Marvel card I have in my hand. So Captain Marvel gets 2 punches, so we're going to go once again for Madam Hydra. She's 1 away, which is fantastic. And then we get a heroic action and a move, which unfortunately I think we're going to waste our heroic action. But I think it's okay because now we have a movement in our prior card, and I'm going to go ahead and place this back here so we have more space on our timeline. We have a movement action and we have a double punch with Iron Man, so we could move over there and finish off Madam Hydra. So let's do this. We're going to take our next turn, we draw a card, and we're going to activate Iron Man. So now Iron Man has 2 fists, a move, and a heroic action. I think he's going to use his movement first. Actually, wait. Before he does his movement, he's going to do his heroic action here because otherwise he's going to waste a heroic action. So he does his heroic action to rescue a civilian, moves, and does 2 punches. So first punch finishes off Madam Hydra. Fantastic. Madam Hydra is gone, which means that a second threat is cleared, and Madam Hydra is no longer bugging us. And he has 1 more punch left, which means, let's see here, I'll just go ahead and get rid of a thug, okay? So we're working on a thug. We don't necessarily want to complete 2 missions, or 3 missions, but completing a 3rd mission isn't bad. It just means that we get to draw a card, which is not bad at all. We have 1 more action that we can take before Red Skull activates again, and I would like to clear off some of these threats as well. Gosh, let's see here. Now, this one does have a special ability. So these locations, once you clear threats, they will then have abilities that you can use at the location. So for instance, this one says at the end of the turn, I can take up to 2 civilians or thugs in any combination from this location and move them to another one. So that would be helpful if this one was really full and I was worried about like overflow effects or something like that. But I think what I want to do is I might activate, let's see here, I might activate Black Widow. We'll see what we draw. 3rd and final turn before Red Skull activates. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. So who do I want to activate? What I could do, 3 punches. I don't necessarily need that. So some cards that you play will also have special abilities. So like for instance, Black Widow says interrogate, look at the top card of the master plan deck and you can put it on the bottom. You get to do that when you play the card with the character as well, which could be really helpful. But I want to be able to move at least once, I think. Because I would like to go over here, I think. So what I will do is I will play this Black Widow card that has a wild symbol. The only worry I have here is that we're on a bit of a timer because Bob, Agent of Hydra, gives us Crisis if we start our turns here, which in the solo mode, I'm not 100% sure how this would work, but I'm going to play it as every turn I get a Crisis token until I finish him off, which is harder, but I think that's true. It may, now, there's every chance in the world I'm going to play a few things wrong here. The rulebook says that the character whose card is played is the active player, so I could rule it, I guess, that if I play an active card of Black Widow and start my turn with Black Widow there, I would take a Crisis token. But I think I may just have to take a Crisis token each turn I start here, but I may be ruling that wrong. Either way, I'm going to play this card with Black Widow. So I have a wild symbol with Black Widow that I'm going to use as a movement, and then I have 2 punches which I'm going to use to try and take out Bob, Agent of Hydra. He only has 2 health left. So hopefully we will be able to take out Bob. Now, the bad news is we now have to play another Red Skull card and see what happens. Ah, Red Skull did the tricky thing here. Oh, this is a bad one. Okay, so Red Skull does not move, but he does have an ability, Hail Hydra, that says discard all civilians from locations with heroes and deal 1 damage to each of those heroes. Advance the fear track by the number of civilians discarded this way. We almost didn't get affected by this because we've removed all the civilians from this location, but poor Black Widow does have a civilian at her location. It is discarded, which means it's not put on this mission. It is not rescued. It's just discarded, which is bad. And then also, we have to deal 1 damage to each of these heroes and advance the fear track by the number of civilians discarded. So luckily it was only 1, but we do have to take a damage. And in this game, whenever you take a damage, you lose cards. In the solo mode, I play it that you can pick any card to discard. So I think what I'm going to do is I am going to discard this Iron Man card that has a pretty good ability, but there are other cards that I think are actually, no, this card, because this card is kind of better than this card. So I'm going to discard this one. It goes on the bottom of the deck. And the bad news is if you ever run out of cards, you are KO'd. And in that situation, in the solo game, if you are KO'd, you lose. So that's bad. So Red Skull has activated, and now it's our turn, and we're working with fewer cards now, which is a bummer. Let's go ahead and take our turn. Holy cow. So let's see here. We have a double wild card from Captain Marvel. And we do have a card. So let's see here. I think we're going to have to take a crisis token because we're going to be starting our turn at this location. But it's okay because I think we can finish off Bob on this turn. So what we're going to do is we're going to play this card that gives us an ability. It lets us look at the top card of the Master Plan deck. And we can place it on the bottom if we want, so we know what's coming. And then also we have 2 punches if we want. So these 2 punches are enough to finish off Bob. Now, Bob is gone, which means that 3 of the 4 threats have been cleared. So what I would like to do now is make it so that we can clear off these 2 missions in a very similar time frame, because what happens is as soon as you clear off 1 mission, the villain starts activating every 2 hero cards instead of 3. So I would like to be able to clear these off as quickly as possible so that we can damage Red Skull as quickly as possible without taking a bunch more of his activations. Anyway, that being said, I'll go ahead and keep this over here so we have more room. We do get to look at the top card of the Master Plan deck. This is a move 1 BAM and then add civilians, which would cause an overflow. So it's, ooh, this is going to be bad. This is going to be bad. Now, what we could do is if we could move over there and then move away before Red Skull activates, the problem is that Red Skull is going to have some overflow happen if we don't clear off some of the civilians here. But we don't want to be here when the Red Skull activates because he will BAM, and Crossbone's BAM effect is pretty gnarly. So, okay, we have 2 more turns before that happens. I think we're going to leave it where it is. Oh, look at this. Look at this. Okay. So we might be able to... Interesting. Okay. Okay, we might want to activate Captain Marvel with this, and then our 3rd turn we could use the 2 wilds to get rid of some civilians and get out of there maybe? Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Okay, I think this might work. We're going to activate Captain Marvel. She has 2 wilds and a punch. So with the 2 wilds we move 1, 2. And the punch is, do we want to take out Crossbones? Honestly, we could just punch here, give ourselves some more room, and then that way the overflow won't happen. And then we take our third and final turn before Red Skull activates to go ahead and get out of dodge, right? We could, yeah, let's do that because, okay, so I think this might work out perfectly. Okay, so we do this. So now we have 4 total actions. We have 2 punches, 2 wilds. So the 2 punches, I guess we just maybe smack Crossbones a couple of times. So maybe Crossbones does get knocked out eventually. Then we move 1 and then do 1 heroic rescue with our 2 wilds to then make it where I think we're okay all around, right? Okay, so now Red Skull unfortunately does activate, but I think it's okay because we kind of prepped for what was coming. So Red Skull is going to move 1 and bam. Deal 1 damage to each hero at Red Skull's location. Oh no, there's nobody there, but we do have to increase fear by 2, which is bad. And then Crossbones bam activation happens, which nothing happens. But Red Skull adds a whole bunch of civilians. Oh man, look at all these civilians. It might have overflowed, but we prepared for it. So we have just enough. Now, there is a problem here. There's a problem here. We might need to focus on this because if Red Skull activates this location, it could advance fear by a whole lot. Anyway, sorry. So that, and I think that's everybody. So we are full up, which is okay because that actually might give us the ammo that we need to finish off this mission, and then maybe we could finish off like this one or that one. Let's see what happens. Okay, we've got 2 punches with Captain Marvel and whatever we draw with Iron Man here. 2 punches, holy cow. All right, but I need some movement, people. Okay, so we've got 2 punches that we're working with and not a lot of movement. Although what I could do is I could play this card with Iron Man, which would give 2 movement, and then he would have 3 punches total, which would be close to enough to knock out Crossbones. Oh man, okay. So we might be at the point where the timing is gonna work out where we can clear off 2 missions and then hit Red Skull a whole bunch, possibly. We'll see. So we're going to, now, Stark Resources has a special ability that says, distribute 2 movement tokens from the pool among any number of heroes. I am controlling all of the heroes, so I just have these in my pool. These are additional tokens that, like in a multiplayer game, I could give these to another player and then they could use them on their turn. But you can use them at any time on your turn in addition to any symbols that you have showing. So technically, like right now, I have 2 moves and 3 punches. I have a lot that I could do. And what I think I'm gonna do is I'm gonna spend both of my moves to go 1, 2, 3 of my punches to almost kill Crossbones. And now we have 2 more turns that we can activate to do some stuff. Now, hopefully, I would like to be able to have a whole bunch of heroic actions that I could use to, oh my gosh, that I could use to clear off some of these civilians and get things, oh man. So what are we gonna do here? Okay, the challenge is we could, okay, I think this might work out. So we could use a heroic movement, or we could use a heroic action to clear off a civilian, use our movement to go here. Oh, but are we gonna punch Crossbones before we move? Which would then activate Red Skull again, but then we would be able to clear out these pretty quickly, hopefully, to then be able to damage Red Skull. The only problem is if Red Skull, oh, okay. So, okay, sorry, I had a timer go off. I have a recording limit on my camera. So what I was saying is I think I'm gonna do this instead. I'm going to move 1 here with Iron Man and do this punch because I have a card. I have a card with Captain Marvel that does 2 damage to adjacent locations, which means that we could potentially, with this act, we could make it to where we could damage Crossbones from an adjacent location because Captain Marvel has a photon blast. She can do that stuff. So we haven't cleared off any missions yet, so we still get to take 1 more turn, which is great because then we might be able to make it so that this is more beneficial to us because holy cow, look at that. Okay, so we now have the ability. Okay, we now have the ability to clear 1 mission in 2 ways. Okay, we're going to activate Iron Man again, giving him 3 heroic actions. 1, 2 here, clearing off this mission, which means that Red Skull now activates every 2 hero cards instead of every 3. But we also have a 3rd heroic action and a movement. So I guess what we could do is put one token on this, hoping that we could make a difference there, and then maybe get out of dodge. So we've cleared this off to where hopefully if Red Skull does move here and activate this card with its target ability, it will only increase the fear by 2, and we might be out of dodge if he moves and attacks us. Now, he may just do all kinds of other nasty stuff that we aren't prepped for, but this way hopefully we've at least prepared a little bit. So let's see what happens here. Okay, so now, holy cow, we got lucky because Red Skull does 0 movement and bam. I'm so glad we weren't here. I thought about going, anyway, yeah, I'm really glad that we're not there. This is actually gonna work out really well, I think. I think this is gonna work out well. Yeah, this is, okay. So 0 move and bam. Deal 1 damage to each hero in Red Skull's location, activate the fear by 2. Everybody else does a bam thing, but Crossbones, there's nobody there, so nothing happens. Okay, now it is our turn again. And this is gonna be a pretty sweet turn. Let me tell you. So first off, Iron Man draws a card, pretty great. And then Captain Marvel activates with a heck of a turn. Captain Marvel has a photon blast, which says she gets to do 2 damage in 1 adjacent location. So 1 damage will knock out Crossbones, which will also clear 4 threats, which means that we can now attack the heck out of Red Skull. This is gone. Red Skull is vulnerable. And Red Skull now has 8 health before we win. Okay, so we still have 1 damage to an adjacent location, so we'll take 1 away from Red Skull. Now, unfortunately, we also have 2 stars that we could use with Captain Marvel. Now, she could go here to potentially, but I'm maybe worried about overflow. So we're actually going to get rid of these 2. Now, when you get rid of these civilians and there's no civilian rescue mission, nothing happens. I mean, it's not like anything else good happens, but it does make it to where overflows might not happen, which is good. Now, unfortunately, we have 1 damage that is wasted because we have nothing to punch at our location. We got a lady with just nothing to punch and just the will to punch, but it's okay. So we have 1 more turn, and we have 1 more turn before Red Skull activates. We are now on a timer, and we don't actually have any movement. So I'm hoping that Black Widow, okay, Black Widow drew a movement. The only bad thing, though, is that it's only 1 movement. So maybe what we could do is go over here to potentially make it so that Black Widow's closer. Red Skull might move over there, and we do a punch to then make it really difficult for this subversion mission to really have much of an impact, okay? So there's that. Now, unfortunately, though, Red Skull activates again because now he's activating every 2 heroic actions. Holy cow, that's not good. This is bad. This is actually really bad. Oh no. Okay, so Red Skull does a Hail Hydra. He does not move, but we have to discard all of the civilians from locations with heroes and deal one damage to each of those heroes, which means that we take 2 damage, which is really, really bad. And then we advance the fear track by the number of civilians discarded that way, which is 2. That's bad. Now, we now have to lose 2 cards. It's okay. I think I'm going to get rid of these 2. And we also have a card in hand with Iron Man that says you may draw cards until you have 3 in your hand. So we actually have a way to get a card back if we start getting really low on health, because Iron Man uses some power recharge. So we now only have 2 turns, but I think we're okay because Black Widow is going to go in and start doing some damage. Now, I don't know if we're going to be able to kill him this round, but we're getting to the point where we can get really close to killing him. We have a movement and 2 punches now. So a movement, 2 punches. He's getting really close. I think we might be able to do it. Draw another card, and it's a Black Widow card, which means that we now get to do this as our second turn. So Black Widow now has 3 punches, 1, 2, 3, and a move. So he's only 2 away, but we do have to survive 1 more activation. And I think what I'm going to do is maybe prep and see he might move this way. So now I've got Iron Man here if he goes here, and Black Widow here if he goes here. And there's no civilians that he can discard here. Okay, so now we may be okay. Let's see how this turns out. Okay. Move 2 and bam. Holy cow. Okay, 1, 2. So we do have a bam and we have overflow, which is bad. So bam is deal 1 damage to each hero at Red Skull's location. Holy cow, this is really bad. But it's okay because I think on this next turn we are going to be able to draw 3 cards with Iron Man to replenish our hand a bit. Now he does add 2 civilians, so there's not room for a civilian here, which means that his overflow effect does trigger by 1 because there was 1 civilian token that we couldn't place, which means fear goes up by 1. That's his move, and now it is our turn again, and we've got Iron Man. So what we're going to do is we are going to play this card with Iron Man. It says you may draw cards until you have 3 in your hand, so I'm drawing 2 more. We got him. We got him. And I can do 1 punch. So 1 punch and 1 star. Let's go ahead and get rid of this civilian. That's great. And then now we take another turn and we activate Iron Man again with a punch, a move, and a star that goes wasted. We did it. That was tough. That was, so I will say, if you are ever out of cards, you're KO'd. In a multiplayer game, it's not that big of a deal. The villain's BAM activates when you get KO'd, but you just draw new cards at the start of your next turn. In this game, if you get KO'd, you lose. So having this Iron Man card that allowed us to do a power recharge was actually really useful. But yeah, this is how you play the solo mode of the game. It's a fun game. It is definitely lighter and more streamlined than something more in-depth like a Marvel Champions or, you know, like a Zombicide style game or whatever. It's got this kind of rondel type, you know, where you can move around to these different locations and get different special actions and things like that. But there is a ton of content for this game. I only have a very little bit. I have the base game, the Spider-Verse or Spider-Man expansion where you get Green Goblin as a villain, and I have like a couple, like I have the Sinister Six and stuff like that. But each of these villains work in a different way. Red Skull has his thing that he's trying to do, but there's also Ultron and all kinds of other villains in the box. Like you've got, let's see, Ultron, Taskmaster, Green Goblin. They each have different goals, different setups, things that they can do. They have different threat cards. So pretty cool game. This is one that I don't mind playing solo. It's a fun one to knock out quickly, and it's one that I'm hoping that my kiddos will get into pretty soon because it is straightforward, and my daughter absolutely loves the female heroes. We've painted up Black Widow. We've painted up Captain Marvel. We've painted up Ghost Spider in here somewhere. She's around. So there's definitely plenty of heroes to play with, and I'm hoping that they get into it. But in the meantime, I enjoy playing it too. So hopefully this was helpful and you enjoyed the playthrough. And if I missed anything, if I played rules incorrectly, I'm absolutely sure I did. I apologize for that, but I had a good time, and hopefully it was entertaining to watch. If you have any questions about the game, comment below and I'll try and answer those questions if I can. But if not, hopefully you just enjoyed the video. So thanks so much for watching, and until next time, I'll see you at the table.